Okay, so you want to buy a sports franchise. Find a city, sign some players, watch the money pour in. Simple enough. Except here's the strange part. The Dallas Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 1996, 30 years. And they are the most valuable sports franchise on the entire planet, worth $13 billion in 2026. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how that's possible, how franchise owners legally show losses on a profitable business, why the relocation threat alone is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and why the smartest play in this entire industry has nothing to do with sports at all. Sports franchises come in tiers, and they are completely different financial animals. At the entry level, you're looking at a Major League Soccer expansion franchise. The buy-in started at $25 million in 2005. Today, an MLS expansion slot costs between $200 and $300 million, still the cheapest ticket into major professional sports in America. An NHL franchise runs you somewhere between $500 million on the low end. The Arizona Coyotes relocated and restarted in Utah as the Utah Hockey Club in 2024, and $1.5 billion for an established market. NBA franchises now average $4.66 billion across the league. And then there's the NFL, where the floor for the least valuable franchise, the Cincinnati Bengals, is $5.5 billion. The average NFL team is worth $7.1 billion. 3 teams are already above $10 billion. But here's what nobody tells you about that price tag. You can't just write the check. The NFL requires any controlling owner to personally hold a minimum 30% stake. You cannot spread the ownership across a corporation. You cannot bring in a government, a religious organization, a non-profit. Groups are capped at 24 people total. And until August 2024, private equity was banned entirely from the NFL. When the league finally opened that door, they pre-approved exactly 8 financial institutions: Blackstone, Carlyle, Ares, Arctos, 6th Street, CVC, Dynasty Equity, and one other, and capped all of them combined at 10% of any single franchise. They also required a minimum 6-year lockup before any exit. So you don't just buy into the NFL, you apply. And 30 other owners have to vote, 3/4 of them, before you're allowed in the room. The vetting process covers your background, your character, your finances, and your intentions. And then if you pass, the league tells you how you can spend your own money. Now let's talk about what you actually own when you buy one of these things, because this is where it gets interesting. When Rob Walton's group bought the Denver Broncos in 2022 for $4.65 billion, they didn't buy a football team, they bought a franchise license. The right to operate an NFL franchise in Denver, to share in the league's pooled television money, to use the brand. The actual football, the players, the coaches, the wins and losses, is almost incidental to the economics. Here's how the money actually flows. The NFL's television deals with CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, and Amazon total over $100 billion in committed future payments. That money gets distributed equally across all 32 franchises. Every team, whether it finished 14-3 or 3-14, receives roughly the same check. In the most recent distribution, that was approximately $400 million per team per year just from the national media deals, before you sell a single ticket, before you sign a single sponsor. Every franchise in the NFL starts the year $400 million in the black from television alone. On top of that, each team runs its own local revenue. Stadium deals, naming rights, premium seating, local sponsorships. This is where the Cowboys separate themselves from everyone else. AT&T Stadium generates over $600 million annually from premium seating, private events, and local sponsorships alone. Jerry Jones reportedly generated $300 million in sponsorship revenue in 2024, more than any other franchise in the league. Total Cowboys revenue hit $1.27 billion last year. They are the only sports franchise in the world generating over $1 billion in revenue annually from a single team. But here's the paradox that every smart owner understands and almost nobody outside the industry talks about. A lot of these franchises, on paper, lose money every year. Not because the business is failing, because of a rule buried in the American tax code that most people have never heard of. When you buy a franchise for $4 billion, the IRS allows you to amortize 100% of that purchase price over 15 years. Player contracts, sponsorship agreements, luxury suite contracts, the franchise license itself, all of it. Every year for 15 years, you deduct a portion of what you paid against your taxable income. The Golden State Warriors were purchased for $450 million in 2010. At a 35% marginal tax rate, that single purchase generated approximately $157 million in tax savings over 15 years, regardless of whether the team won a single game. And here's the double count that the Players Union figured out during the 2011 NBA lockout. Player salaries are expensed operationally every year, and those same player contracts are simultaneously amortized as part of the original purchase price depreciation. The same cost is counted twice. Once as a current operating expense, once as a depreciation of what you paid for the asset. This is why owners during collective bargaining negotiations can stand in front of cameras and say they're losing money while the same assets sell for record prices the following year. In 2011, the NBA owners convinced the players to cut their share of basketball-related income from 57% to 50%, saving ownership hundreds of millions in salary costs annually, on the argument that 22 of 30 teams were losing money. 2 years later, the LA Clippers sold for $2 billion. Which brings us to Donald Sterling. Sterling bought the Clippers in 1981 for $12.5 million. He was the cheapest owner in the NBA for 3 decades. He refused to spend on players, kept the franchise near the bottom of the league year after year, and ran what multiple reports described as one of the most dysfunctional organizations in professional sports. In 2014, he was forced out after racist remarks he made privately were recorded and published. He left with $2 billion, 166 times return, in 33 years, on an asset he actively mismanaged. The asset appreciated because of things Sterling had nothing to do with. The NBA's media rights deals grew, the league added franchises and expanded markets, the cartel controlled supply and the value went up. Nothing Sterling did as a sports operator mattered to the outcome at all. That's the core mechanism of this business. You're not really buying a sports team. You're buying membership in a cartel that controls how many franchises exist, who can own them, and what they're worth. And cartels, by definition, protect the value of their members. Now let's talk about what it costs to actually run one of these things. Player salaries typically consume 50 to 60% of total revenue. In the NFL, the salary cap for 2025 was set at $255 million per team. That's the floor and the ceiling. You don't get to outspend your competitors infinitely. But in the NBA, there's a luxury tax, a penalty system that charges you extra for every dollar you spend beyond the cap threshold. The Golden State Warriors paid $176.9 million in luxury tax alone in the 2023-24 season. Their luxury tax bill that year exceeded the entire NBA salary cap of $136 million. Over 3 consecutive seasons from 2021 through 2024, the Warriors paid a total of $510.9 million in luxury tax penalties. The cost of winning 4 championships was $500 million in fines to the league. Beyond salaries, you're running a mid-sized corporation. A typical NFL franchise employs 300 to 500 front office staff year-round. Coaches, scouts, analysts, medical staff, marketing, legal, security, operations. A full coaching staff alone runs $20 to $40 million annually. Facilities cost another $5 to $20 million a year to maintain. And if you don't own your stadium, most franchises don't, you're negotiating with a building that controls your concession revenue, your parking revenue, and your premium seating margins, which is why the smartest franchise owners stopped thinking about stadiums as venues. They started thinking about them as real estate anchors. The Atlanta Braves figured this out first. When they moved into Truist Park in 2017, they built a 75-acre mixed-use development around it called The Battery. Restaurants, apartments, retail, office space, event venues. In 2025, the Battery generated $97 million in revenue, a 45% jump from the year before, and it posted $69 million in operating profit. The baseball team itself generated $51 million. The real estate is more profitable than the baseball, and here's the part that makes it even smarter. Mixed-use development revenue is not subject to MLB's revenue-sharing protocols. Every dollar the Braves earn from the Battery, they keep. The Battery had 9 million visitors last year, compared to 2.9 million baseball tickets sold. 3 times as many people visited the real estate development as watched the actual games. And when the Braves finished 10 games under .500 last season, their worst record in 8 years, their total revenue hit a record high anyway. The real estate didn't care that they lost. Every major franchise is now trying to copy this model. Now let's talk about the failure cases, because this business can go wrong, and when it does, the reasons are almost always the same. The most repeatable mistake in sports franchise ownership is confusing the asset's appreciation with the business's profitability. These are two completely different things. You can own a franchise that's worth $3 billion, losing $50 million a year operationally, and still be getting richer because the asset itself is going up in value faster than the losses are accumulating, until the day you need liquidity, and then you discover that you own something illiquid, controlled by a committee of your competitors that can only be sold with their approval. Dan Snyder bought the Washington Commanders in 1999 for $800 million. He ran the franchise for 24 years, multiple congressional investigations into workplace misconduct, a $10 million NFL fine in 2021, a $60 million NFL fine in 2023. He sold the same year for $6.5 billion. The NFL fined him $60 million for running one of the most toxic workplaces in professional sports, and then in the same vote approved his $6 billion exit. The fine was less than 1% of the sale price. The other failure mode is the stadium trap. Every franchise owner eventually faces this moment. The current stadium is too old, too small, or missing the premium revenue that modern buildings generate. The city won't pay for a new one, so you threaten to leave. This threat has a documented price. Nevada committed $750 million in hotel room tax revenues to build Allegiant Stadium and attract the Raiders from Oakland. Nevada committed another $380 million in taxpayer funds for the A's to build a ballpark on the Las Vegas Strip. The Brookings Institution calculated that the federal government alone has subsidized stadium construction by $3.2 billion since 2000. The threat doesn't even have to be sincere to work. Clay Bennett bought the Seattle Supersonics in 2006 for $350 million with a contractual promise to make good faith efforts to keep the team in Seattle. Leaked emails from members of his ownership group suggested relocation was the plan before the purchase closed. He paid $45 million to break Seattle's arena lease, paid another $30 million in contingency penalties, moved the franchise to Oklahoma City, where it became the Thunder, and was subsequently appointed chairman of the NBA's Relocation Committee, the body that evaluates other teams' requests to move. Now let's run the actual numbers. 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. You buy a mid-market NBA franchise for $3 billion. Annual revenue around $350 million. The national media deal contributes roughly $200 million of that. Local sponsorships, tickets, and arena revenue make up the rest. Player salaries and luxury tax run $280 million. Front office, facilities, coaching staff, another $50 million. Net operating income, roughly $20 million a year on a $3 billion purchase. That's less than a 1% annual cash return. But your franchise is appreciating at 14.4% per year, the verified GAGR for North American sports franchises over the past 20 years, per the Ross Arctos Sports Franchise Index. So while you're earning $20 million in cash, your asset is growing by $432 million annually in paper value. And unlike the stock market, this asset didn't lose value in 2001, 2008, or 2020. Franchise values showed near zero drawdown through 3 of the worst financial crises in modern American history. Scenario 2. Something goes wrong. Your star player tears his ACL in the preseason. Ticket revenue drops 15%. A national sponsor walks. You're now operating at a loss of $30 million. The luxury tax kicks in. You owe the league another $40 million for being a repeat offender. Your loss for the year is $70 million. The asset is still worth $3.2 billion. You are not broke, but you are bleeding cash in a business that was supposed to make you money while you cheered from a courtside seat. The difference between a good year and a bad year is $90 million, and you can't raise your prices. The league controls the salary cap. The league controls the broadcast revenue split. The league controls who you can sell to and at what terms. You own a $3 billion asset that tells you how to run it. Step back and look at this whole business from the outside. A sports franchise has the most protected revenue floor in American business. There is no industry where your biggest competitors vote to ensure you all stay profitable. There's no industry where the government subsidizes your infrastructure at $3 billion and counting. There's no industry where a tax rule allows you to write off 100% of your purchase price against income you earned from something else entirely. And yet, for all of that, the people who actually build the largest fortunes in this industry aren't the ones who bought a franchise and waited. They're the ones who figured out that the sport is the smallest part of the story. Jerry Jones has been worth more from the Cowboys brand and AT&T Stadium revenue machine than from anything that happened on the field. The Braves make more money from a parking lot full of restaurants than from baseball. The Raiders extracted $750 million from Nevada taxpayers before they played their first home game in Las Vegas. The game is the product they sell to the public. The cartel, the tax code, and the real estate are how the money actually works. If you ever do buy a franchise, just remember one thing. The fans think you're in the sports business. The smart owners figured out a long time ago they're not.